The member for Stirling.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Attorney-General and Minister for Industrial Relations. Will the minister update the House on how the Morrison government is taking action to deliver certainty and stability for small businesses, for workers and for subcontractors by ensuring that registered organisations and their officials obey the law? And is the minister aware of any alternative approaches?
The Attorney-General and Minister for Industrial Relations.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for his question. And as the member is aware, the Ensuring Integrity Bill before this place simply sets out appropriate standards for someone to hold the important position as an official of a registered organisation. The bill would allow a court to determine at its discretion whether it's appropriate for someone to maintain office as a public official in, say, for instance, a union where they'd committed an offence against the law of the Commonwealth or a state that carried a term of imprisonment of 2 years or more. Why is that necessary, Mr Speaker? Well, there are multiple examples of individuals holding these important public offices who have offended against that rule. And there was one reported, which will be of great interest to all members assembled, in the Australian Financial Review today. 2 CFMEU organisers, one Mr Nicholas Riquez and one Mr Simon Gutierrez. Mr Riquez pleaded guilty to supplying an indictable quantity of a prohibited drug, an offence that carries a penalty of more than 2 years' imprisonment. Mr Gutierrez pleaded guilty to possession of a prohibited drug. The supply charge for these offences related to an earlier conviction of Mr Michael Greenfield, another CFMEU official, for possessing a prohibited drug. All 3 are still employed at the CFMEU. And interestingly, Mr Speaker, Mr Gutierrez, it's reported, was previously convicted to 18 months, serving a non-parole period of 7 months in prison for supplying a prohibited drug in a commercial quantity on an ongoing basis. Now, I have managed to get the transcript of a. I think that you'll be very interested in it, members opposite. I think you'll be very interested in it. This is the application. This is the application for Mr Gutierrez when he was applying for an entry permit to building sites. This is after the first conviction, before the second conviction. And the submission that was put as to why this person should have an entry permit as a union official was this. And I've heard of a lot in the years over the courts. I've never heard this before. The submission as to why, after the first conviction and before the second, he should have a public official's entry permit was this, quote, "Working for the CFMEU had given him the opportunity to change his life for the better." Now, it would seem, Mr Speaker, the only problem with the CFMEU's drug rehabilitation program is the spate of later drug convictions after someone's been in the CFMEU drug rehabilitation program. And just the other day, and the silence is now deafening, we had John Setka, who's obviously in charge of their anger management programs. And what did John Setka say? He said about crossbenchers who might vote in favour of a bill that says you shouldn't have a drug conviction and be a public official. He said, we're going to make it so that in 20 years' time, when they're walking down the street, we'll put the finger to them. They're aware of the damage we can do.